Are we sitting on a debt time bomb? Are we heading for a US dollar crisis that no one really wants to talk about? They look at the stock market and they celebrate and hey, everything is fine. But is there really a deep, dark secret right now that's been unfolding in the United States as it relates to the US dollar and the 36 or 37 trillion dollars in debt that we're sitting on? How is that sustainable? One person who watches this closely has been warning us for years that this is not sustainable is Dr. Ron Paul, former presidential candidate, congressman, and really one of the great thinkers on this. And people seem to always sort of retroactively pay attention to you, Dr. Paul. Like they'll say, my gosh, who could have guessed this? Oh, 10 years ago. Here's video of Dr. Paul standing on the floor of Congress warning all of us about it. Does it get frustrating that people seem to sort of retroactively point back and say, you were right?
Well, in a way, it's frustration, but I sort of conditioned for it. So
Yeah.
it's sort of exasperation. Yeah, they don't really care. They either are not too smart or they're doing it on purpose because they don't want to talk about reality because it's so bad. So it serves their purpose. If they knew, they might even, Republicans might vote conservatively. Now, if you're a good, solid Republican voting the Constitution, you're the worst guy in the Congress, taking on the establishment. And the other thing that people don't want to recognize is, the difference between what was promised in the Republican campaign versus what Biden was doing was dramatically different. Don't argue that there's not much difference. And in a way, I had to reassess thereafter. I said, well, maybe I should quit saying that because, it sounds like there could be a difference. But, now I'm less likely to say it than ever. You always look for something that might be different. But, it's a bipartisan issue. They want spending. And on the big issues, they totally agree, whether it's foreign intervention, warmongering, military-industrial complex, and domestic spending, and they recognize all all the things that are important. They don't deal with monetary policy in a serious manner. You don't hear in a presidential campaign, well, I'm for sound money. Well, I tried that, and I did get a little bit of attention. One thing that amazed me was when I was doing that in the presidential campaign is how many young people were interested. And when I was on a liberal campus, they were listening to. A matter of fact, I was always sort of bragging about the fact, I never invented this word, about the Fed, getting rid of the Fed. It was a chant on a college campuses. So there's enlightenment out there, but it wasn't with the political parties. It was younger people who was a little bit more independent minded than the conventional Republicans and Democrats. But I don't see a lot different ultimately. Are we going to change our foreign policy basically and become non-interventionist? Are we going to change the welfare state? Are we going to change the monetary policy? Are we going to quit running up these huge deficits with Republicans? No, it's a unitary party, and I think that the few that do defy it are recognized, but it's not a good place to be if you're looking for comfort. And I took an opinion. Well, I'll talk to people. I'll be friendly with them, but I'm not gonna pretend I can convert these people, because the conversion doesn't have to be out there. It has to be with young people. It has to be on radio programs and reaching out to people. I don't know how many people you reach out to, but I can guarantee you what you're doing now is more significant than being a member of Congress.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think our audience, I can ask them right now in the chat room, we've got a large audience, and I think many of them would agree with you, ending the Fed and stopping this ridiculous spending. We had Congressman Thomas Massey on just last week, and, he's being vilified, of course, for trying to put the Constitution first, trying to end these foreign wars, spending that we can't afford, passing the buck to future generations. And he's being vilified within the Republican Party for being conservative, putting America first. It's kind of stunning. Does that surprise you?
Not too much. It's so disappointing. It is. But then somebody said once to me, aren't you very frustrated with being up there with those clowns, and they don't pay much attention to you, and they don't change the policy? But I meet people like you and others that are doing a lot of work on it. And that's the way things change. This is the way I think the far left moves. And I think the cultural Marxists are very successful. And they said, we want chaos in the streets. We want to, rebuild society. And I said, well, they've created the chaos in the streets. Well, we as a believer in freedom, that we should take advantage of that chaos and tell them where the problem is and what the answers are. So I looked at it more in that sense, which is not very political, because it's delayed, it's education, and that's so much different. But I've had nothing but surprises on the upside, because
Yeah.
before I was in Congress, I never set out as a goal to run for Congress and be congressman. And it was when the Bretton Woods broke down, I said, this is a big deal. When the gold standard was eliminated, this is going to usher in an age of big spending and big lies and big wars and all this stuff that went on. And that to me was a big deal. And a lot of people, I'm surprised that we've gotten along as well as we have. But I think we're moving into the conclusion when people are trying to figure out what to do, where to cut. I think that we're bankrupt morally and financially, so we shouldn't have high expectations. And I conditioned myself not to think, well, a little bit of advantage. And that, quite frankly, I was from my viewpoint and the way I measured what I was doing, I was pleased with the responses, especially of the young people. And that to me was enough to keep me going. Besides, I just wanted to talk about what I thought was truth, the right thing to do. And I had admiration for most of the founding fathers, and I think we were blessed and given an advantage, though imperfectly, that we had an advantage as Americans, but we squandered it. And I always think, well, let's reignite that enthusiasm for freedom.
Oh, I would love that, to reignite the enthusiasm for freedom. I mean, I thought we saw some of that, obviously, after the 2024 election, this idea of liberty, but it seems like we're being dragged down by the same forces. Can we talk some brass tacks here, Dr. Paul, about where you see the U.S. debt right now as a ticking time bomb? You said we're in the conclusion phase right now. What do you see happening for the U.S. dollar in the next year to 2 years, 3 years? And what do you see happening with our debt? I mean, there's no way that this is sustainable, right?
No, it can't be sustainable, but we're in the process of dealing with that. We're diminishing our debt by diminishing the value of the dollar, and therefore, in real terms, the debt doesn't go up. And people don't quite understand that if you print a lot of money, the value of the dollar goes down. So that's what it's being done mostly for the government to maintain it. So the dollar is still there, but the dollar, we're in a process of liquidating it. So in real terms, the dollar is worth less. I keep looking back when I first started thinking about coins. I saved coins when I was a paper boy and I delivered milk, and I'd always look at all the coins. And when I heard the silver was going out, I'd save the silver dollar and silver coins, but that's all gone now, and they rely on. But so we're liquidating debt. Real debt goes down, and we will not be able to continue this. And it won't be liquidated by paying it off. People worry, oh, I won't get my Social Security and we're not going to get our bonds renewed. Yes, you will, but it's going to be with junk that is not valuable. So when you go to the store, instead of saying, I've had constituents come in the office and say, oh, you talk about inflation, what are we supposed to do about this, and ask questions. I said, what's the problem? He says, well, these prices are going on. I said, what do you think I should do? Give us more money. Just give, they want more bailouts. That's what the banks do, and that's what the governments do. But I think even though it's steady, there is an erosion. It's already started. It went from, in my lifetime, where gold was pretending it was $35 an ounce up to over $3,000, and even back then I anticipated that it would be huge. And, even when it happens, I said, it's really unbelievable that they allow it to happen. But like we were talking at the beginning of the program, it's a bipartisan thing. On the short term, it's an advantage for them. They keep it alive, and a certain group profits from it. It's been devised for both parties to pass the buck on and the debt on to the young people, because the middle class and the poor, pay for the higher prices. So that's the tax, and they get away with that, and they keep printing and printing and printing. I'm astounded that Rand's trying to say $5 trillion increase in the national debt, just like Thomas Massey understands it. That's huge, and then you come across a person that was preaching austerity and a little bit of conservatives, and they say you guys are monsters. You want to ruin our wonderful, big, beautiful bill. It's so much demagoguery, and it's so disgusting that people buy into it.
Can we just pause here for a moment to talk about what I think is one of the most important things you and your family need to do right now, and is to protect yourselves against a collapsing U.S. dollar. We've been talking about it for a couple of years on this show, and I hope you just heard what Congressman Ron Paul said to me. Clayton, the U.S. dollar is going to collapse. War can wipe out your financial future as well. Right now, the U.S. is on a dangerous path. Record spending, endless global conflict, Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Iran, all of it fueled by borrowing from a government printing press that's running on fumes right now. Congressman Massey knows it well. He wears a freaking debt badge that's like an electronic debt badge on his shirt, showing just how deeply we are in debt. The $36 trillion that the U.S. dollar that we are now in debt, but that's not even the full story. War is brutally expensive. Makes them a lot of money, the military-industrial complex. So here's what you need to be watching right now. The U.S. debt, it's accelerating out of control. The dollar losing value. The BRICS nations, you saw President Putin last week talking about all of the transactions that have been carried out among the BRICS nations now, totaling over $1 trillion. Like, BRICS is on the rise. The reverse of the U.S. dollar is happening. But gold and silver, they are rising for a reason. The value of purchasing and making sure you have gold. You can never go wrong with having gold. You can never go wrong with having silver. Goldman Sachs is already predicting gold could hit $4,500 an ounce by 2026. Why? Because smart money is moving right now. Central banks, billionaires, institutional investors, all investing. And so it's your turn right now to act on this. Give our friends at Lear Capital a phone call. Here's their 800 number on your screen. They can help you invest in gold by going to call them 1-800-613-3557. We started investing in gold and silver years ago. Natalie and I did. It's been one of the smartest moves and secure moves that we've ever made for our family. Even our kids have holdings. This isn't a trend. It's a shift right now, and you can actually do it as well. So give them a call. Just talk on the phone with them. They're an American company. They'll have a conversation with you. No pressure. 1-800-613-3557 and see if it's right for you and your family. Do you want to invest in the stock market? You want to put your family's future there? Do you want to invest in U.S. dollars, put your family's future there? Or do you want to invest in something tangible like gold, silver, and even real estate? You can do that if you have a self-directed IRA, and they can actually walk you through and help you with that. Just go to LearRedacted.com or call their 800 number, 1-800-613-3557. Again, 1-800-613-3557. That is the place to go. We're heading, if the U.S. dollar is almost worthless, and we just keep printing more of it, and now $1 gets, far, if you compare a McDonald's value meal from the 1980s, it's the same size, same amount of French fries, but now it's 3 times the price, and there's no difference. It probably even shrunk. I mean, maybe the burger even got smaller. Maybe there's fewer French fries. The sodas got smaller. Who knows?
Yeah.
So at what point do you see like an event horizon, Dr. Paul, like where the U.S. dollar, like there's a point of no return? Have we already reached that point of no return?
that's the way it works in places like Zimbabwe and Venezuela. It finally hits, and then there's runaway inflation. There's a collision, and then they have to do a new currency. That will come and can come, but I keep thinking, can they be that stupid? Why doesn't somebody grab hold of the range? But that's not the way it works. It's going to get worse. There will be a liquidation. They have to liquidate the debt. We can't afford, otherwise it'll increases exponentially because
What does that look like when you say liquidate the debt? For my viewers who aren't as well versed in monetary policy, like what would we have to do to liquidate the debt? What would that look like for Americans?
Well, there's two ways of doing it. You can liquidate a debt if you're a person. You liquidate your debt by not paying for it, and you declare bankruptcy. But governments don't do that. So they liquidate the debt by if there's $10 billion in circulation, put $20 billion in circulation. So the debt has been liquidated, exponentially. It's decided by the prices will be decided, but by the market. But the debt, the real value of your money, that's a liquidation of debt. And that's what governments do. They print, and until it gets so bad. But the biggest threat, as far as I'm concerned, is the social discord that comes. We're seeing it more and more, how much violence is occurring and blaming people. And there was just the shouting and all this business. I think compared to, I think it was messy when I was there, but it was a lot calmer than that. I mean, I cannot believe that George Bush would have yelled names at me like they're yelling at Thomas Massey, like he's an evil person. But this is testing the distribution of our ideas on who's going to win this. So far, the polling shows that people are sick and tired of it, and they are catching on. That's why the internet is a big problem, but it's a big deal, a favorable deal, because we're getting our message out more than before. So I think the solution is understanding economics, and then getting people excited about it, and let the message get out through the internet. And that means that the most important thing that we do right now is being challenged, and this administration and all of them would try to curtail our freedom, to express ourselves. And you're probably aware of, the coming in and trying to regulate speech. And that, to me, is a dangerous thing, because I think the people will respond to common sense. But now, there's a trend that's on that just thinks that, people get put in jail now, and they get closed. And just think of what was going on in COVID, and the COVID epidemic, so-called. This was horrible. If you said things out of place, I as a physician would say things that contradicted the government, you'd lose your job. But
Yeah.
it's been reversed a little bit, and people are waking up. But that's why when I left Congress in my farewell speeches, the most important thing we maintain is the freedom of speech, because that's an ideological process. You get to express yourself and change the idea. The ideas have to be changed by the middle class, the average person, so that when they go to the drugstore or go to the grocery store and say, these prices are high, we need wage and price controls, or they're going to say the big high. They have to say the dollar is losing its value. But they don't really say that. They're always looking for a regulation. They want the government to do that. And the most important price that exists in the marketplace is the price of money, interest rates. And if interest rates, are set by the market, except right now it's set by the government. Since they print the money, they can take interest rate. Oh, we think it should be 2% or 2.2%. And they play these silly games, and it's all there to fool. This argument, I find it fascinating to listen to the president and Powell arguing about what should the interest rates be? Oh, well, Trump says we should lower the interest rate because business people want lower interest rates so they can, continue their process. So that to me is some totally ignored. They don't talk about, the price. A lot of people know there should be no price fixing, but even the people against wage and price controls never talk about why is the government secretly deciding, 5, 10 people gets involved and they're going to set the interest rates, and that's the price of money. And then they control the supply of money. And so the bubble will keep growing until it does burst. The sequence and when when it will happen is unknown. It could be next week or it could be next year, but it cannot continue because we're now the interest is higher than, even the military budget. The interest rates is guaranteed and it's accelerating. It's an exponential curve. It used to be they had more control of it, and they probably made honest attempts to make it work and keep it together. But the system like this doesn't stick together. It finally demands more and more because people make a lot of money out of it. And that's why there's nobody in the military industrial complex who argue for low interest rates and a tight money supply. Because that's
I know you said it's unknown. It could be a week. It could be, what's your best guess of when we have to liquidate this debt and when we would see a full sort of US dollar collapse?
Well, I've been thinking about that a long time, especially when it really hit me hard in the 70s. And that I thought, well, it's going to happen. I don't know when. I just systematically, decided I would protect myself, thinking it could. But the answer is, did I know some big things would happen? I think, no, I never knew. But I can't imagine you and I talking in 10 years and having the same conversation. Well, we did better than we thought, and we're limping along, and we're still fighting all the wars we want, and all the special interests, the pharmaceutical industry is getting what they want. I can't believe that'll happen in 10 years. So there'll have to be some adjustments, but the adjustments are going to be on the bearing down of the military. This whole idea of having troops come in to our cities, I think that's very, very dangerous, and it's been set up on purpose because the greedy people went along with the Marxists because they wanted the chaos in the cities, and just think of what we've witnessed in the streets in the last couple of years. So I think we're getting closer, but for me to say just 24 hours, or no, 24 months from now, it'll be all over. I don't even want to think that I can predict.
No, you're a smart man for not wanting to hit that date because they can keep moving the goalpost by doing some really, really awful things. And I think you're right about that. I haven't thought about the Marxist collaboration with these neocons and otherwise expansion of the military industrial complex, where we're now spending over $1 trillion for a military industrial complex to continue all of these foreign wars and for what? It's really disquieting. And I think, as we face the 250th anniversary of the United States, we're sitting on the precipice of disaster right now. Dr. Paul, thank you so much for your insights as always. I hope, I think we're getting the message out. I hope we're getting the message out. And I hope if they scrap this big, beautiful bill and they have to go back to the drawing board, as Congressman Massey said the other day, that maybe cooler heads will prevail and they'll start to actually do something. I really hope that that's the case.
I think that's the most we can do. And the most important thing we do is change people's mind and get them to understand what the real problem is.
Yeah. And I think what you said too about young people who are like, these prices are so high. We need more, a higher minimum wage. We need price controls. No. We need to not devalue our US dollar, right?
Right. That's all to do. Anyway,
I hope we can get that message out. Dr. Paul, great to see you as always. It's great to see you. Thank you so much.
Good to see you. Bye-bye.